Hello and welcome to another Doctor Who Top 10. Previously I've done Top 10 second and third Doctor stories, so this time we're going to be going back and doing the first Doctor. Before we get into that though, patreon.com/Genesis of Androzani if you'd like to contribute to the channel. We have early access, exclusive access, and requesting videos for us to do on the certain tiers. Twitter.com/GAndrozani if you'd like to get in contact with us or just check out what we're talking about. And with the plugs out the way, I will say that now on this channel I have already ranked the first Doctor stories before on a live stream that we did in December. Go check that out. It's Advent Calendar Day 23, I believe. But I asked the subs on Twitter if they would like to see me do a top 10 Hartnell stories in the style that I did the second and third Doctor video as well. And they voted yes, so your wish is my command. So today we're going to be doing the top 10 Hartnell stories, and hopefully we can sort of build up a bit of a playlist of top 10 Doctor stories so you guys sort of have a, you know, for completionists out there, you've got a bit of a collection of each Doctor, of me talking about my favourite stories of each one. So without further ado, let's get into the top 10 first Doctor stories. So kicking off our list at number 10, we have The Keys of Marsinus. The Keys of Marsinus is an epic 6-part quest. Basically, the Doctor and co get stuck on an alien planet where their TARDIS key and lock has been taken from them. So what they have to do is they have to find 6 keys to... I think it's 6 keys. I think it's 6, yeah. They have to find 6 keys to fit into this almost like structure for this villain called the Vord. And they have to find these 6 keys in all these different places. What this means is that you get a 6-parter, but each episode feels different because it goes to a different location. One of my favourite parts of the Keys of Marsinus, and one of the reasons it's in my top 10, is because it's got so much variety, and I love variety in Doctor Who, and the fact that each episode feels like a different story within itself, almost like a mini story, means that it's brilliantly paced. And there's almost magic to it, where you are being shown a taste of all the different kinds of Doctor Who that was to come in the 60s, and it's really cool how it manages to blend all of them together. Terry Nation really had his creative juices flowing that year, because obviously he wrote another story that year that I'm sure you're all aware of that will come later on this list. But I love the fact that the Keys of Marsinus does this and has all these different plots in it that are really cool. And also, it's weird, but I'm not sure if this is canon or not, but this episode kind of invents the vortex manipulator that you see in Torchwood with Captain Jack Harkness. And it's pretty cool how when I watched that, I was like, wow, that's like almost exactly like the vortex manipulator that we see Jack use. And yeah, overall, Keys of Marsinus is a thoroughly enjoyable story. I love it. Really, really good. And the only letdown for me is the budget, because the production on it looks very cheap, but overall the charm and the writing and the just brilliant concept shines through the cheapness of its production. And that's why it's at my number 10. Go check out the Keys of Marsinus, it's awesome. Then at number 9, we have The 10th Planet. This is obviously a monumental story. Not only is it the first appearance of the Cybermen, but it's also the first ever regeneration story. Going firstly on the Cybermen, one of the best concepts that Doctor Who has ever made. In a parallel reversed world similar to ours, humans evolve to the point where they use prosthetics and mechanics to keep them alive, but they lose all their humanity in doing so. You all know it. If you've subscribed to this channel, you all know the concept of the Cybermen. It is brilliant. And especially in the 10th Planet, the Mondasian Cybermen design with the corpse under the sheet is chilling and very, very frightening to look at. I adore the original Cybermen. And overall, I would say this is a story that feels like it's playing out in real life, which gives it a really rich, bleak atmosphere. Not just because it's directed so well, but the fact that the whole story feels like it could actually happen. Not only because the Cybermen is a concept that could be part of our future, and a horror that is even present now with people with prosthetic limbs and whatnot, and AI, but also the way that the first Doctor's regeneration is handled, that even though it wasn't intended at first, they had to do it because they were writing him out of the show. In hindsight, the way I view it, this regeneration really plays out like a real death, and that is something completely different to every other regeneration in the whole show. It really showcases the First Doctor in his old age and how his death very much feels like a person who's lived out their life and is ready to go. And I loved that. It was a breath of fresh air to see a regeneration story handled this way. Without all the pomp and circumstance, it's just very subtle and very just, that's it. He's done. And also there's some chilling lines in there from Hartnell, him even foreshadowing the rest of the show, such as the line, "It's far from being all over," which really just speaks volumes about the rest of the show and how this episode really made the show live forever in a way, and I love that. And also another thing that I love about the 10th Planet is Hartnell's era was known for its education, especially with its historicals, but there are a couple of instances where it did it with the science side as well, Sensorites being one example. But in this one, we really get a futuristic hypothesis of what machines could do to us. And I think that is fitting for Hartnell's last ever story to be set in the original goal for what the Hartnell era was supposed to be about, which was education. The fact that his final story is educational but looking forward, it really echoes the themes of the story being all about looking forward. And it is a one-of-a-kind chilling story. And I've heard a lot of people criticize this one because the TARDIS team didn't really impact the story much. If they weren't there, then everything would have happened as usual. But I think that makes it feel different to everything else because it's really a showcase of a concept and also how it fits into the real world, which gives it a completely different feeling from any other Doctor Who story. Its 10th Planet really is one of a kind, and I think it belongs in my top 10. Now, at number 8, we have The Chase. This, for me, is one of the most feel-good stories in Doctor Who. It is such a fun watch. I may sound hypocritical with this one because I've been critical of Dalek stories before that have gone for the silly tone. Look at Victory of the Daleks, look at Asylum of the Daleks. But for my personal taste, this is an example where it really works, and I would say it's probably because the slapstick comedy in The Chase is very reminiscent of old cartoons such as like Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, that 1940s sort of style that I really enjoy. And it's really, like, The Chase for me is one of the most fun watches I can have of a Doctor Who story, with the way it's structured, the way it's played out, and just the vibes of it is so fun and enjoyable. Just things such as Ian's dad dancing to the Beatles, the fact that the Beatles have a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that was in the TARDIS before they were even in there. Like, the Beatles they were a breaking out band at that point, and the fact that they said that they would have a Rock and Roll, well, they would have like a Beatles like Hall of Fame thing or whatever it was. I think it was something, something to celebrate the Beatles, and now we actually have one. So it's actually historically accurate from the future. But yes, then we also have Barbara mocking the Doctor singing on the beach, not on the beach side, but on the sand. It's just wonderful. And then of course you got Vicky in it, who's just always great. And I love William Hartnell in this as well. William Hartnell looks like he's having a lot of fun in this story, and that's always great. And also the introduction of Stephen as well, which I also love. And the fact that he also plays another character in the story called Morton Dill, who's basically a piss take of a Southern American, but it's fucking hilarious. But really, this is an epic journey through space, as it is called The Chase, as the Daleks are chasing them through space, and it's just so much fun. And on top of that, it's all capped off at the very end by one of my favourite companion exes ever of Ian and Barbara. If you've seen the Twitch stream, you know the meme, London 1965. It's a brilliant moment. It's so heartfelt, so warm, so feel-good. Probably the happiest ending that you could possibly have for a companion, and probably the happiest they ever will be. Absolutely love it. Brilliant. I love The Chase. Number 8 in my top 10 Hartnell stories. Now, at number 7, we have another comedy. It is The Romans. This is probably, arguably, the funniest Doctor Who story ever made. It is hilarious. And on top of that, the large-scale Roman world full of life and character and great sets, and especially the main character of the Roman king, I think. He is a fucking great actor who plays him, and he's so funny. There are great moments with the Doctor, with Vicky, with Ian and Barbara. You know, this is a story where it really actually, like, this is one of the ones where, like, the number one Ian and Barbara shipping episode that people have, because there's some... Like, you can't deny it, there is some romance in there between them in this episode. The Romans is a wonderfully romantic, comedic, and fun story, and just a great adventure. And it ties into a historical event of the Fire of Rome. And the fact that it's caused by an accident is pretty hilarious. But yeah, overall, this is one of the funniest Doctor Who stories ever. And if you just want some pure entertainment, I would highly suggest you check out The Romans. It's so underrated. Brilliant. Number 7 on my top 10 of Hartnell stories. Number 6, The Daleks Master Plan. This is, in every sense of the word, epic. A 12-parter. And in fact, if you include Mission to the Unknown, the prequel to this, it's a 13-parter. Unless you consider Trial of a Time Lord to be one story, which I don't, the Daleks Master Plan is the longest Doctor Who story ever, and it is so good. The first 6 parts are some of the most intense, gritty, dark, captivating, brilliant Doctor Who ever. Terry Nation at his absolute best. Just 6 episodes of pure intensity, and this plan that the Daleks have, this universal plan with the Tyranium core and all these different alien races, is awesome. It's so grim, so dark, and so exciting, and just episode 3 in particular, I believe it's either 3 or 4. I think it may be 3 or 4. I think it's 4 actually, is the one where Katerina dies, which is just this heartbreaking moment. The only thing that I would change about that, though, is I wish that it was Vicky who died, because that would be even more heartbreaking, because you'd actually be invested in the character. But yes, Dalek's Master Plan is insane. It has... The Doctor has 4 companions in it. He has Stephen Taylor, he has Katerina, he has Brett Vian, and he has Sarah Kingdom. And 3 of them die. 3 out of his 4 companions die. And that is crazy. Yes, the first 6 parts are just brilliant Doctor Who. Then you get the Feast of Stephen, which is a Christmas special, which is just fucking insane. It's completely just out of the blue and just nothing like the previous 6 episodes, but it's got a kind of charm to it where it's just so bad that it's good. And a Merry Christmas to all you at home. But then, of course, the second half brings back some of the fun from the chase, as it becomes more of a comedic chase through space, like it was in the chase, as the Daleks are chasing them with the Tyranium core. And also you get the return of the meddling monk, which is great, and that is a great fun. And just, yeah, all the different episodes, so entertaining to watch. Those, like, episodes, like, I think it's 7 to 10, very entertaining stuff. And then the last couple episodes, 11 and 12, transition back into the intensity from the start, gets grim and dark again, takes us back to the planet that we were when the Tyranium core was taken. And the ending is absolutely shocking and leaves you in despair, the amount of death and just pure depression after the fact of Doctor and Stephen, the only ones left. It is a marathon masterpiece, one of the darkest Doctor Who stories of all time. And I think the only reason why I don't rate it higher is because it's not very consistent. But overall, I absolutely love it. Dalek's Master Plan. Fingers crossed it gets found someday. Highly unlikely, but fingers crossed, because Dalek's Master Plan is brilliant. Number 5, The War Machines. War Machines, in a lot of ways, is the prototype for so many Doctor Who stories, especially the Pertwee era. Of course, this being an Earth-based technological threat really sets up for a whole bunch in the future, and really lays the groundwork for those stories and does it brilliantly. This is also an excellent introduction to Ben and Polly. I love the fact that the first Doctor, this sort of old man, he has to go into a nightclub, and it's so bizarre to see him there. And he meets Ben and Polly in that nightclub. It's very interesting character writing, and the fact that the way that they're all brought together is awesome. It's really well handled. This story, The War Machines, is effortlessly watchable and entertaining. It's very fun, and the way it foreshadows technology and computers. I was talking before about the Cybermen and about the future, but the way that The War Machines really foreshadows the internet as well, and does it accurately in the 60s, and it actually foreshadows it the way that we view internet now in a lot of ways, is actually really interesting, the way that they had that foresight when they were writing the story. This also has the brilliant vintage of 60s Earth serials. It's very much done in that style, which I really enjoy. And the first Doctor starts to really stand up to his villains here. which shows how far his character has come, because obviously the War Machines is at the end of Season 3. So the Doctor really has developed as a character, and you can see it in this story. As he's coming to the end of his run, how much he's developed and how far he's come, and I love that. And the only real flaw I have with the War Machines is Dodo's exit, which is really lazily handled. But apart from that, I love the War Machines. Excellent, so much fun, brilliant. Number 4, the Daleks. I mean, what can I say? It's the Daleks. In a recent radio poll, it was voted #1 moment in sci-fi history, because obviously the concept is unbelievably brilliant and iconic. Terry Nation was a genius when he came out with the Daleks. The moral dilemma for them between the Thals and them is so reminiscent of the World Wars. It's brilliant, and the way it's handled within a sci-fi context is so cool. Just how dark the Daleks really are in their beginning is so grim and so brilliant, and it's absolutely no wonder that the Daleks hit off on all fours and just became this famous iconic thing that everyone in the world knows about now. The direction of the story is absolutely chilling. The score by Chris Tristram Cary is absolutely unsettling. I listen to it all the time. It is awesome. I love the Dalek score. Without the success of the story, we wouldn't be here right now. This story is the reason why Doctor Who has lasted the way it has, because the Daleks is absolutely awesome and brilliant and groundbreaking, and one of the most important moments in television, in my opinion. And the only flaw I really have with it is that the last couple of episodes sag down in quality slightly, but overall this story is still a masterpiece, and it is brilliant, and I love it, and deserves to be number 4 at the very least on this list. Number 3, the Dalek Invasion of Earth. You could argue that this is possibly the most iconic Doctor Who story ever made. Dalek Mania was in its absolute peak when this story came out. This story has an unbelievable level of charm and magic to it. It is my favourite performance of William Hartnell as the Doctor. He is unbelievable in it, especially at the very end with the speech he gives to Susan. It is one of the most iconic moments in this show, and one of the best companion exits, especially considering it was the first one, was handled brilliantly. This story also set the tone for all of the series finales we get in New Who, because it really echoes what New Who series finales aim to do, especially the Russell T Davies ones, and I love that. And as a fan of New Who, going back and watching the Dalek Invasion of Earth, it actually feels very familiar to me, with how similar it is to New Who finales. I love the characters, and I love the story, and I love the Daleks in this story. It is awesome, and the only letdown for me in this story is some of the direction's a bit off, which is a shame, because I feel like if Chris Barry, who'd done The Daleks, had directed this story, it would be one of the best ever. And the direction for me is the only thing that really lets it down. But overall, Dalek Invasion of Earth, top tier stuff. Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Also a story that I have very emotional response to. Out of the first Doctor stories, it's probably one of the ones that I would say I have the most emotional response to, and I'm most hooked in, and the most magically carried by, and it's great. Number 3, Dalek Invasion of Earth. Absolutely awesome. Then at number 2, we have a pure historical. It's the Aztecs. The Aztecs is the tried and true Hartnell story. It is a pure historical that introduces the effects of time travel into the show, really lays out the rules in a way that really makes sense and works for the story. It is Barbara's best episode, as she becomes the Aztecs goddess of sorts, and I love the dilemma between her and the Doctor, her wanting to fix the Aztec culture so that murder and violence won't happen again, but the Doctor saying to her, "You cannot change time, this is not possible, trust me, I know, Barbara." One of my favourite little scenes between them. This story has a world of characters that feels lived in. The Aztec culture is fascinating, and it's executed excellently here. It feels very real, and as if, this is really what the Aztecs would have been like as a society. The way that they are so driven by their basically religion and culture, that they act as if they are people, but anything that is set in stone as their rules, such as the sacrifices. It's considered absolutely normal, and this kind of murder is considered absolutely just, this is the right thing to do, 100%, this is to our gods. And this kind of exploration of culture is something that I find very hooking and very interesting, because it really gets you thinking about this kind of culture and this extreme level that they go to for their gods. And the fact that these Aztecs have this sacrificial, violent tradition that most people these days, in the Western world at the very least, but most people I know would be very against, because most people living in the world today are very anti-murder. But the fact that they are so nonchalant about it, because it is, to them, being sacrificed is the ultimate honor. And I just love the way it explores that side of the culture. There is a hilarious moment where the Doctor accidentally gets engaged, which I love. There is a brilliantly cartoonish villain, and it's not over the top. It's cartoonish, so children will enjoy it, but it's not over the top. It actually works. And he does kind of break the fourth wall a bit, but I love the villain in this. And just the faces he pulls, like the very extreme faces, I really enjoy. The Aztecs, absolute pleasure to watch. If I were to recommend a pure historical from the Hartnell era, I would recommend the Aztecs. For me, it is the definitive one. Absolutely love it. Number 2, very, very, very brilliant, very excellent, very good. All the adjectives. So now we get to some honourable mentions. We have The Crusade, which was very close to being on this list. The Crusade is a story that I used to not understand, but these days I absolutely love. The Crusade is dark. It has some of the best acting in the history of the show. It is so jam-packed with stuff. Unfortunately, 2 of the episodes are missing, but if you can get your way through telesnaps, then this story is for you. And if any of you out there like Game of Thrones, the way that this story plays out has multiple stories going on at once within the serial, which plays out similarly to the way a Game of Thrones episode is structured, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy the way that The Crusade is structured, and it's so jam-packed with dialogue and great story and just brilliant writing by David Whittaker. And yeah, it was very, very, very close to being on this list. It's just, I think maybe the Telesnap version just slightly bumps it down, but hopefully, fingers crossed, the other 2 missing episodes get found someday, because I would love to give this a rewatch in full and see where it lands, if it lands in the top 10, because The Crusade is brilliant. Then we also have another brilliant pure historical, Marco Polo, which I feel like Marco Polo, like the 10th Planet, is so unlike any other Doctor Who story ever. It is this grand 7-part adventure from the Himalayas all the way down to the where is it again? It's the Kublai Khan's sort of castle, I think it is. It's this long epic journey told by Marco Polo in past tense of when he met the Doctor and his companions. And you really get the feeling of this is a story where it's all about survival. There is a brilliant cliffhanger where the water that they have left, the reserve water, gets poured out, which gives a life threat to them. I love Marco Polo. Brilliant story, and again, like The Crusade, fingers crossed that those 7 parts get found someday, because I would love to watch Marco Polo as it was first aired, because it is beautiful to look at, especially when I looked at some of the colour photos. It's awesome, and I would say that this is actually one of the reconstructions that works really well. Of all the telesnaps loose cannon reconstructions did, this is one of the ones that I feel like really works well. Either the black and white version or the colour version. Because the colour version is very engrossing because it's got so much colour on it. And the black and white version's updated so it's more accurate and has more telesnaps and is more engaging as a sequence. So yeah, go check out Marco Polo, brilliant. Then we've also got the Gunfighters, which is just a very fun story. It certainly has some dull moments, and I can understand why some people think it's very silly, but I love the Gunfighters. I think it's very, very enjoyable and very cheesy Western. Then we have the Edge of Destruction as well, which is a bottle episode, which I really enjoy. The only big flaw with the Edge of Destruction, which sort of holds it down a bit, is the fact that The whole reason why it happens is because the fast return switch was turned off, which is a bit stupid. But in terms of the way it explores the Doctor and the companions and really puts them at odds with each other, is a great bit of character development. And the Edge of Destruction has one of my favourite moments for the First Doctor, when he finally figures it out, and it's this greatly directed scene with the black background and the TARDIS console behind him, where it's almost the first moment the Doctor does this little sciencey bit where he's like, oh, and I find out about all this thing. Like, there's a scene in Tooth and Claw where the 10th Doctor is reading those books, and he figures out that the trap was for the wolf, like when he's doing his little sciencey bit. And the Edge of Destruction really has the sort of first moment with the First Doctor, really shows that side of the character. It's a brilliant scene, and Hartnell's performance is excellent in it. And then we also have The Rescue, which is a nice little two-parter, brilliant character writing by David Whittaker, brilliant introduction to the companion that is Vicky, who is one of my favourites. I absolutely love Vicky. Excellent. We also have Planet of Giants, which is a very creative story that shrinks the TARDIS and the team down, and they walk into a big, large world of giant human beings, and giant ants and giant everything. Just all the things that you think are small are now big. And there is really some dangerous moments here, like when they get there's a cliffhanger where they're being chased by a giant cat. There's also a cliffhanger where some of them are stuck in a sink where the drain has been opened and the water is coming down. Yeah, I love Planet of Giants. I think it's really underrated, and the production on it is absolutely excellent. Then we also have The Web Planet, which is a very highly criticised Hartnell story. I think it's excellently underrated. I understand that it is hard to suspend your disbelief because the costumes are so childish, but for me, this story, it really is an enjoyable trip, I would say. It's probably one of the closest that Doctor Who has been to, like, being on drugs. And I love the action scenes between the Zabi and the Menoptera. I don't know how they pulled it off, but it just looks so cool. The Web Planet, arguably the most alien Doctor Who story in history, because the only humanoids in it are the Doctor and the TARDIS team, because everyone else is an insect. Yeah, Web Planet I think is very underrated. And obviously Mission to the Unknown as well, being the prequel to the Daleks Master Plan. Chilling stuff, great introduction, and I love the way it seeds into the epic earlier in the season. Almost like how The Long Game seeds into Babel Parting the Ways, Mission to the Unknown does the same. And it's also, interestingly, the shortest Doctor Who story ever, because it's only 25 minutes. But yeah, Mission to the Unknown, go check out the animation for that, because Ian Levine commissioned an animation for Mission to the Unknown, and I think it's really of really high quality. So go check that out. Love Mission to the Unknown. That is all the honourable mentions. So without further ado, those of you who saw the live stream and have watched our videos and sort of know of my opinions on Doctor Who, you will all know what this number one is. It's the Time Meddler. Of course it's the Time Meddler. This is the first Doctor Who classic DVD I ever bought. It is the first pseudo-historical in the history of the show, which is a groundbreaking moment. The story takes place on a beachside in England in the 1000s, in 1066 I believe, and it is filmed in a small set, but Douglas Camfield's direction is so gorgeous, it makes it feel absolutely real, like you're actually on a beachside with wind. It is beautifully atmospheric, really sucks me in when I'm watching it. The Meddling Monk by Peter Butterworth is one of my favourite villains, not just because of the performance, but the characterization as well. The fact that this is the first time that we have met another Time Lord that is not the Doctor, or I suppose Susan, but she's more of a Gallifreyan than a Time Lord. But I love the Meddling Monk. In a lot of ways, he is like the first Doctor's version of the Master, although a lot of people would say that James Dreyfus's Master from Big Finish is. But in terms of just the TV stories, you could argue that the Meddling Monk is the equivalent of the First Doctor's Master. I absolutely love the Meddling Monk, and Peter Butterworth plays into perfection. The British characters in this story are very simple, but they are sympathetic. There's a dark death in this story of one of the British characters that really is quite heartbreaking, because it's one of the ones that you get to know. The Viking invasion is awesome and violent. The way it's just, you got this little plot going on, but the Viking invasion is creeping in on it. And the fact that the meddling monk is going to change events and meddle with time, so that the Vikings win the invasion is insane. Yeah, just wow. It's a brilliant plot there. And the fact that the Doctor now has to stop this from happening is insane. Like the way he has to divert the monk's plans. It's very gripping because there's very limited time left, because obviously you get a scene where the monk looks out on his binoculars and he sees the Vikings coming into shore. So there's a very limited time to get this settled so that everything comes back to how it originally plays out in history. The Vicky and Stephen are top-tier companions in this. They are absolutely brilliant. I love them together in this story, and the way they get separated from the Doctor creates some brilliant exposition and almost twin exploration of the story. And also the one episode where Hartnell wasn't in it, I believe, was the one where he's jailed up by the monk because Hartnell had a day off. I love because Vicky and Stephen really carry that episode, and it's effortlessly works, because sometimes when the Doctor is not present, the story can sag, but this is one of those few stories where every single part is brilliant, and they all match each other. And I love the cliffhanger where Vicky and Stephen find the meddling monk's TARDIS. It's awesome. This story unfolds like a storybook, where each little piece comes at you one by one, and it all just brilliantly and beautifully comes to you, and just, it's so magic. William Hartnell's performance is absolutely top tier. He is brilliant in the story. Absolutely love the First Doctor here. He's warm, funny, kind, and just very, very, very good. Hartnell on his best day, basically. This and the Dalek Invasion of Earth, I would say, are probably the two best performances by him for me. And also, this is a story that when you get to the end of it, I feel very satisfied and complete, which makes it work as the Season 2 finale, because, you know, we're watching Season 2 in a sequence. By the time I get to the end of the Time Meddler, I feel absolutely just fully satisfied, and as if like there couldn't be anything more that I could want. It's such a complete and wonderfully final story to that season. One of my absolute all-time favourite Doctor Who stories, The Time Meddler, is, and it is my number one William Hartnell story. And if you haven't seen it yet, please watch it, because it is so good. And whilst it does rank high on the DWM for First Doctor stories, in the context of the show as a whole, it is so underrated, as is the First Doctor's era as a whole. Absolutely love The Time Meddler. 10 out of 10. There we go. So that is my top 10 First Doctor stories. Let me know what are yours. Tell me what you think of my list. And tell me if you liked this video and you like this style of top 10 stories. And let me know if you want me to do any others, such as the top 10 Fourth Doctor stories, because that's obviously the next one in the sequence, which will be very interesting. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time for whatever comes next.